Good evening, I'm Duncan Golestani. They are symbols, one of the symbols of iconic London, the black cab, but like so many other industries this year, the pandemic has brought them to a standstill. Few tourists and few commuters means very little trade, so much so that the drivers' unions say fewer than 10% of the 20,000 strong fleet are currently working. New measures to encourage walking and cycling mean traffic is far worse in some areas, which cabbies say is adding to the problems they face. More on those measures in a moment, but first Ria Chatterjee on the black cab and the fears for its future.
A driver preps his taxi, but will he get any customers? A queue of black cabs isn't an unusual sight, but we are living in unusual times.
It's having an absolutely devastating impact on the taxi trade in London. We've seen in the last 6 months, we've seen the number of licence holders drop by nearly 1,000, guys that have surrendered licences. The number of cabs has dropped phenomenally, the number of licensed vehicles. I mean, this really is a desperate time for us. And this desperation is being aided and abetted by the boroughs and the mayor, who are closing roads all over.
So like all of this, I would normally just pull over to if someone would put their hand out, come out the shop, I'd pull over on the side of the pavement and they would jump in the taxi. But right now, how are they going to get in? Do they have to climb over the bollard? They have to walk all the way down there where there's a little opening where people are crossing the road.
Dale Forward is readjusting.
They're doing like loads of road blockages as well. They're trying to make the streets more residential, pedestrianised. And like, for example, I can't go a left there now where I used to. I used to go left there, then a right, and get them into Euston Station. So I literally have to stop on this road and tell the customers to cross the road, which is not right. It's making our job really, really difficult. We're 100% wheelchair accessible. We need to be able to get our customers right to the door. We can't afford any blockages at all. We're having to put in longer hours. It's affecting our home lives and everything. So, but you know, we're still here and we will always be here, providing the best service we can.
The taxi trade are asking the Home Office if they may put the fares up. But I wasn't waiting for any old taxi.
The story of London's black cab starts in the 17th century. Its checkered history now has a global pandemic on the list. According to the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association, only around 2,000 drivers are working at the moment, out of around 20,000. Many in the trade say people working from home is a huge contributing factor.
If you can imagine what it must be like, you're driving around in your own little box, as I've just said to you, on your own, and you're not picking anybody up. And you're constantly thinking, you know, how am I going to pay this? How am I going to pay? How am I going to pay for the cab? It's really, really bad news. The isolation, the loneliness of being in a cab on your own with those sorts of pressures is incredible.
Familiar streets with new rules. A help to some, a hindrance to others. Ria Chatterjee, ITV News.
So we heard in Ria's report about the impact widened pavements and cycle lanes are having on traffic in London. Under the same piece of emergency legislation, councils have been given the money and power to create so-called low traffic neighbourhoods, closing some roads to traffic with the aim of encouraging walking and cycling and creating a cleaner, greener London. Perhaps inevitably, it hasn't had that effect for everyone, as Martin Stewart has been finding out.
Tower Ceramics rely on local roads to deliver customers to their door and tiles to their warehouse. But overnight this week, several neighbouring streets were shut.
Were you consulted about this?
No, not at all.
How does it make you feel?
Pretty angry. This is my job on the line if we lose the custom, therefore lose the business.
The closures are to create a low-traffic neighbourhood. They're popping up all over London to encourage people returning to work to walk or cycle rather than drive.
No to road closures, no to the division of community.
Critics say they cause traffic snarl-ups and there's growing anger.
Overnight, this road was blocked. It prevented any fire service from Islington Fire Station, which is up the road here, being able to access any of the properties down there.
The bollards physically blocking that road have been replaced by cameras. Jodie's campaigning to get others opened up too.
2 police vans can't get through either way.
It's killing London. It's destroying London. You're closing roads which are the arteries of this city, and it's going to die.
Air pollution campaigners say on the contrary, the schemes are making the city healthier.
Over lockdown, we got to experience a temporary low traffic neighbourhood and it was incredible. And low traffic neighbourhoods do reduce traffic and they do create that clean and safer environment.
TfL earmarked £30 million for street space schemes. So far, councils have spent £6.5 million of that on 860 projects, which include pavement widening, cycle lanes and low traffic neighbourhoods. The schemes are temporary, but don't officially need to be reviewed for 18 months.
You can't just have, a bad situation kept going for a year or 18 months.
That's the leader of the opposition of Harrow Council.
These things need to be looked at.
He's just persuaded his borough to drop 5 of the 9 proposed schemes, and pressure is now growing on the mayor's office.
Can you understand people's frustration that as traffic is being diverted from some areas, it's leading to pinch points in other places and potentially higher pollution there too?
So a number of these schemes are being introduced as a temporary measure, and we will need to review the impact upon adjacent roads, both in terms of traffic volumes and air pollution. A lot of evidence, though, shows that when you introduce things like low traffic neighbourhoods, over time, the overall amount of traffic actually decreases.
With the government legally obliged to cut pollution, the journey to cleaner air was always going to be sticky. Martin Stew, ITV News.